Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. And this Monday morning, we are really looking forward to Friday's deadline for all of our incredible 2026 Impact 100 applications. As hopefully many of you know, this is the second of our webinars. And today, what I'd really love to do is focus on questions that you might have in running through the application process. So in just a little bit, I will give lots of time for you to come off mute, ask any specific question that you have, or drop it in the chat. We try really hard to ensure that this is an equitable process for everyone. So I want to make sure that everyone has access to the same questions and information around this process. I am going to drop in the chat the webinar that we did, I guess about a week and a half ago. If you go to this page, let me drop it for everyone. You can access the webinar that we did last week. We really do recommend that you watch that before you hop into the application process, or at least before you submit your LOI. There's lots of really good information in there on how to apply, what we're looking for, how we're grading the application process. This morning, I'm going to run through a couple of things that have come up in regular questions that I've received since last week's application. So I want to make sure we're all clear. But then again, we'll make sure that we have time for questions on the back end. So just to start us off, I wanted to do a quick run through of the application timeline and make sure everyone is aware of the process that we at Impact 100 go through to review your applications. We spent a lot of time in our last webinar talking about how important it is to use plain speak as you write your applications. This is very different. And you know what? I didn't start off by introducing myself. My name is Mackenzie. I am grateful to be one of the grants co-chairs for this process. I oversee the volunteers and really this application process alongside Jill Henry. So if you ever have any questions while you're working through the application, please shoot us an email. I'm going to drop our email in here. You can reach both of us at grants@impact100atlanta.org. We are both monitoring that that email portal. And so back to what I was saying, plain speak is really important. I have the privilege of working with lots of nonprofits in my day job and writing a lot of grants myself, actually. And sometimes there is different nomenclature that makes sense to focus in on depending on who you're applying to. This is a purely volunteer-led process. And we have this year 450 women from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds. The first application review is done by two members of our board, and we are checking to make sure that you have completed every answer fully. So we are making sure that you have checked every box. There's a very final question on the LOI that asks if there's anything that you need to call out around transitions. We'll check to make sure that if you said you do have something to call out, that you offered an explanation for it so that it's an efficient process. But that first review that we do is to make sure that you truly are a 501c3, that you really have been in operations, and there's a couple of those requirements here. So I'll flip over to that and then go back. So every organization has to meet these three categories. The first review that we do is confirming that you do actually meet all of these. So we will look you up in Candid. We ask you to verify that your profile is accurate for what is listed in Candid. So we will check there. We will make sure that what you have submitted around your history and years in service lines up with what we can see in Candid. There's an option for you to add any disclaimers or additional notes of something in Candid. I know sometimes we are a part of a broader association, so we don't have control over our Candid profiles being updated. There's an option for you to add that note in there. So that's our first check. If we don't see that Candid shows that you have been in operations for really 4 years, then we'll flag it for you and ask you to confirm. We're looking at that 4 years because this last one here on the screen, the 3 full years of independently audited financial statements. This is what ends up getting most people booted out of the process. I know that the state of Georgia does not require everyone to have a financial statement, an audited financial statement, but we at Impact 100 do. So Many folks end up applying and saying, I have a financial statement that's been reviewed by someone else. If it is not an independently audited financial statement, you will be booted out of the process. So, what we've recommended in the past, if you're a smaller organization, I know organizations with an operating budget under $1 million are not required to have this. If you are an organization like that, would really encourage you to find a larger organization and do a collaboration and submit an application that way, so that you can still fit within the requirements. So back to review process. Like I said, we'll do that first pass over this weekend to make sure that you qualify in all of those 3 areas and that you've completed the LOI to the best of your ability. We'll make sure that one question that asks about measurable outcomes, that's a really important one for our first review panel, to make sure that there are 3 distinct outcomes and that they're measurable and that you have a good definition around it. I know it's a short answer. Please do not feel like you need to write long responses on any of this. I know we have a really tight character limit, so really encourage you to do bullets, to do that plain speak. Like I said, your application is going to be reviewed by an attorney, by an accountant, by someone in marketing, by individuals with a background in community service. So your application needs to be understood by all of those different backgrounds. So again, plain speak, if you're comfortable with AI, that's a really great opportunity to just run it quickly through that. Feel free to drop in a link with our board. That first review is done. The first step to make sure you meet all those are done by our finance chair and by me. And then the second one is done by all members of our board and the focus area committee chair. So those are the voices you're writing to in that LOI process. We hope to have all of those done before the Memorial Day holiday, and then have invitations going out to everyone to write the longer application, which I know is longer, and have those done by mid-June. If there's any extension in our timeline, just due to the number of applications that we receive, we will be mindful of that as well and adjust these deadlines accordingly. After that, so once you've completed your application, that application is being reviewed by a group of women that are focused in that specific focus area that you've chosen to apply for. So again, similar with diverse backgrounds of everyone's professional experience, but those women have specifically chosen that focus area, so they are looking at everything through that lens. So just be really mindful as you write your application process to really hone in on how we define each of those focus areas. And then when you get to site visit, you're able to work more closely with the focus area chair to work alongside you and help ensure that that visit is really successful. But I think you're a little bit of an island on your own as you're writing the LOI and application. So wanted to make sure it's really clear for you what that review process looks like. Again, we talked about this before, but our aim is to let everyone know by end of August if you're moving forward for finalists. This year, as we have 5 grants, there will be 2 organizations in each focus area that move forward as finalists. So just numbers. I think last time someone asked about what's the ratio, what's the percentage of success here. Last year we had 129 LOIs received, and then we call that down to anywhere between 6 and 8 that move forward in each focus area. So 38 organizations moved forward from LOI to application. And then from application to site visit, we usually do about 3 to 4 of those per focus area. And then ultimately that is narrowed down to 2 per focus area. And then ultimately 1 per area receives a grant. So I want to make sure you have all of that information. We've talked through this already, but just make sure that as you're applying, I just hate for people to take time to fill out the LOI and not have made sure that they can meet all of these. There are specific questions in the application that ask you to verify this. I will be double checking those as well, and we'll ask for copies of your audit in the application round. Again, similar, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the project type. We've received some really good questions around this. There is a perception that we only fund capital grants. That is not true. Our track record is that we have invested in a lot of capital grants. I encourage you to also go through and read our past grantees. I'm going to drop that here in the chat for you. Those you'll see a broad spectrum of gifts. We have invested in a lot of mobile vehicles. That is not a requirement. It's just a very helpful, tangible project to be able to sell. Think about as you're doing this, and Michael Lucas with AVLF spoke to this well. This is not your recycle and application that you've written for five other projects. This is or five other applications. This is not, carve out a tiny piece of a big broad capital campaign. We are really looking to make a transformational high impact project through this. Think of, and many of the ones that you see in here are those vehicles that really move the needle in project execution and have that staying power. Similar with the sports court is something we funded last year. We're really excited to fund something in arts and culture this year. And I know in the past we've received a lot of requests around funding for events, and that doesn't have has not really resonated as something that has that lasting staying power as some of the more tangible projects. So, and this is just me brainstorming around it. But if you're thinking about art, think about something tangible that you can create, like a mural or some structural piece of art or something that's representative that can stay beyond the 2 years of our grant. Or perhaps it's curriculum that you need to invest in to establish how you're going to change how you teach in this moment, where SEL is so important and where arts and culture are changing the trajectory for children. Just think about something that has that lasting impact. In the past, when folks have asked us to invest in events, we've had a hard time describing that for our fellow members. And ultimately, at the end of the day, our finalists will be asked to pitch your project in front of all of our members. We have a final meeting in November where we invite all of our members to come, and you'll usually have about 4 minutes to pitch this project. So think about that elevator pitch is so important of this, of what are women going to walk away and feel that we're making a transformative impact here. We will have a coach that supports you and helps you practice your story. We hire a professional speaking coach to come alongside you and make sure you know how to do that. But as you envision this project, I just really encourage you to think about that piece in all of this. Other points on this screen that have come up in questions, the total project budget does have to at least hit that $90,000. If it's less than, it usually gets an automatic boot, but we'll come back and try to ask questions with you. If it's over 90,000, really encourage you to already have those either have the funds raised already or have them set aside so that it's very clear to us that we won't give you a grant and then you have to spend another 2 years fundraising to meet the need there. We want this to be impactful, particularly within the 25 months of when you receive the grant. Talked about this last time. I won't go through all of these definitions, but if you do go back and watch our first training video, I'm going to drop it in the chat again. I see several new folks have joined us. So on here, the slides from last time, I'm just going to say first webinar. The slides from last time when we spent a good bit of time talking through all of this, but just think about this project in that lens. Can I walk away from reading your application and saying, like, this is the impact that it's going to have. It's going to have, like I said, staying power beyond the life of this grant. I can clearly say how it's changing lives or making them better through this. It's very clear, and it has that local impact here in the greater Atlanta area. I think we end up spending a lot of time talking through these, and I can't tell you which ones to answer. I saw someone asked about arts and culture and our interest and priorities in that. So hopefully what I said already around thinking about something that has that tangible staying power is really helpful. I do think you could articulate a really strong application around some investment. Maybe it is in programming or capital, physical things that you need in your space, or a new curriculum that can advance your work in a way. Just make sure you're able to articulate what the tangible impact is around that beyond just the life of this one-time investment. And so to that example that I gave, we've gotten events in the past, and those we have moved some of them forward, but they don't usually have a staying power of an investment. Although I know that they do transform lives in that moment, but I have noticed that those don't often move along. That being said, it is Our committees for each of these change every year. So Impact 100 is very different from other grant applications that you'll do. This is not about who you know. It's about the project that you've written and how you're writing it, how you're inspiring people around it, and what your organization does. Our chairs for all of these committees are the same chairs that we had last year, but our committee members change every year. So this is truly up to these groups, and we have a standard rubric that everyone goes through across every application process, but this is about compelling 450 women around your project, and that's at least 100 new members from last year or so, and from all across Atlanta. So I know that's hard, but this is truly about how powerful of a project you put forward. So encourage you to spend time looking at all of these. You do not have to, your organization does not have to serve in the area that you choose to submit in for a project focus area. We talked about this last time, but say I am an after school service organization, but I really need some type of mobile clinic on site for my children because I've noticed that there's a high need for medical services. And so I'm putting in an application to partner with I'm trying not to name actual organization names, but a health clinic to deliver services or establish a mobile clinic at my site. I would submit that one in health and wellness rather than in education, even though I am an education organization. So pick the focus area that really fits your project type best. We've had this many times in the past where we are reviewing, we get a lot of applications in education, and we review the education application, and an organization is chosen to submit in that category because of their mission, but not because of their project, where it could be better served in another category. Say you are a green space organization, but you are choosing to invest in something that helps families better access your property or your green space or get engaged in the health and wellness of that. You could choose one of the other projects. I see a question. If our project has crossover with an early learning center, it's really up to you to decide. And so as I read through that, you need to decide what's going to be the strongest applicant. If arts and culture, I will say, has historically not had the highest amount of applications. But this is the first year that we know we can fund in that one as well. So you might have a higher probability of success in moving forward with arts and culture, because I could see a project that's working with children, especially early young children, and arts and culture having a really strong success in that category over education, which just probability wise has a lot of applicants in it. Family is another one that we get a ton of applications in. So just think through it in that sense. And as you sit down and read it, think about other education applications that might be coming through and what they are going to be, what their outcomes are, their impact, their measurable impact is probably going to be related to academic success, and arts and culture impact is going to be different than that. So think through where that impact, that measurements of success is going to stand out more. Please feel free others to drop questions in the chat as we go. And then lastly, just want to remind what we don't fund in all of this. We don't do general operating expenses or overhead. We know that is important. But again, as we think about high impact and transformational, that's not what our funding is for. We're also not a recurring funding source. If you receive funding from us, there's a gap of 2 years after that before you can receive funding again, and like 2 complete years. So think about projects that have that staying power, that are not just operating. You are welcome to put operating expenses or overhead in your budget. I spend time training all of the volunteers, and particularly if you are submitting for a program or curriculum or staffing, that'll be something that I would encourage volunteers to look for as they review your application. Is there operating expenses built in here for the staffing power required to do this work? And if not, ask questions during the site visit on how they plan to sustain this work. So overhead is perfectly fine. Someone asked last week if it would be okay for them to put in 10%. I think that's perfectly fine. Just make sure you describe what exactly that's covering, because I have a background in doing this grant writing and working with organization nonprofits. So I know what that is, but not everyone has that. So just explain again, back to that plain speak. If overhead is a line item in your budget, make sure you explain like this is an allocation of executive time to be deeply engaged, and that this is our time to build partnerships to make sure this is sustainable. This is our program staff time so that we can make sure we're investing in them as they're designing this program out. We do not fund debt reduction or operating deficits. I know that's hard to say right now as we muddle through the federal climate of funding, but do not. I would encourage you not to submit to reimburse something that you have already purchased. That will not be compelling and will probably get pulled out by a grants finance team. We do not do grants to individuals. We do not do endowment funding. We don't do that interim or bridge funding. So think about a capital project where you need that interim space while you're waiting for pledges to be paid off. That is not us. If you do have capital improvements, this is something that has come up in the past and been a restriction for people to move forward. If it's improvements to a facility that you lease, make sure that you are in a long-term lease and you are not at the end of your 5-year lease or something like that to move forward. We need at least 5 years moving forward. It really is better if it's longer than that, but that's kind of our baseline requirement. And then again, I've talked about us wanting to be equitable and inclusive in all of the work that we're investing in. We know that places of worship are hubs for such great community resources. You are welcome to submit requests around that. Or if you are a place of worship, just make sure that your project is supporting everyone, that it is not restricted to a specific denomination in order for you to get funding. I see a question in the chat. If we submit an application with a collaborator, could they also submit? They can, but we can only have one per 501c3. So they would have to they could do the one application with you, and then they would need to do another one that's a collaboration in order for us to look at both of those. We've had that issue as well, where a big organization that has several that sit underneath them, we can't review two under one 501c3, so they need to each have a distinct 501c3. So long answer short, Katie, it is better for them to pick one to submit with. Okay, I think those are all the things I wanted to run through with you all. Yes, so would love to just open it up for questions. You are welcome to drop them in the Q&A chat. You're welcome to put them in the chat that goes to me or raise your hand. Happy to chat through it with you. But yeah, just wanted to make sure we had this 30 minutes this morning to answer questions as you all work through the LOI process. So I will pause now. Feel free to raise your hand or drop it in the chat. Or if everyone feels good, we can end early. Okay, I'm not seeing any additional questions. I'm just going to remind you of those few things that we focused on today. Again, you are required to have 501c3. Oh, let me see. I just got a question. Do you consider salaries for mental health professionals as overhead? It depends on the percentage there, Janet. I would encourage your entire budget not to be staffing. You can absolutely include staffing in your budget. But again, as we think about sustainability, we talked about this before, would encourage you if you're I think you can make that part of overhead, but if it is more than 10% of your budget, I'd make it a line item in your budget and show how it is covering maybe a larger percentage in year one and a smaller percentage in year two, so that we can see that you're building towards sustainability in that staff person line item. So yes, that is perfectly fine for us to do. Jan, I'm going to let you come off. If you want to chat, you can come off mute, but Jan, I also see your question in the chat too. We do fund private education institutions. You're welcome to apply. Was that your question, Jan, or do you have something else you wanted to ask? Okay, great. Jen, I'm going to take you off speaking unless there was something else you wanted to add in there.
No, thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Okay. I'm going to let others think through, but then drop this in one more time. So what I would encourage you to do, again, if you're comfortable using AI, maybe write out those answers first. Then even drop in a link to our board list, which I think has most of our professional affiliations on there, and ask it to review it and make sure there aren't any changes it would remove if you're using any jargon. That'll be really helpful in the application process, as we ask you detailed questions. But just as a reminder for this process, it is volunteers. We have about probably 8 sets of eyes that look at each of the LOIs. And so that is 130 plus LOIs that we're reading through in a really short time frame. So we are reading through quickly, scoring it. We have a rubric for scoring each of the LOIs. And a lot of it is after we've reviewed your application, can we walk away and say, yes, this is having a high impact, it's well defined, it's local, and it's sustainable. So I would encourage you just think through that. There's a question around what's the unmet community need. Let me drop these in here. Another really helpful thing to look at is our past grantees. So read through what they were able to put forward. There's a spotlight on each of them. I'm trying to multitask as I drop this in. Past grantees and then questions. You can do all of this through our submittable platform, so make sure you're logged in there. I see a question. Can you speak to how the application differs from the LOI? Um, yes, it is longer. It is not exactly the same questions as the LOI. There are no additional requirements. The requirements are the same. There are additional questions, and we do give you an opportunity to expand upon what you've written in the LOI. So there's absolutely that chance to do that. We ask more questions around your organizational strengths, and our thought the LOI is very short. We have a pretty quick timeline for our window to invite people to submit those, and we want you to be able to quickly put it in. The application is long. There are much more questions in it. And you know what, we can probably put a PDF of that on the website as well. We try to give you about 4 weeks to write that application, but we know that it's a heavy lift. So we try to only ask folks who have moved forward, that smaller group, to do that. So there's more time to expand on specifically the impact. And then we ask lots of good details around leadership and board leadership and how folks are involved in that process. We ask you to talk through any issues that you've had in the past. Oh, you know what? This is one other thing that I didn't mention earlier, that may be helpful to note and to put in. There are a few different options for you to add additional context to yourself as an organization. We do search online just to check for any reputational risk. So if you have been in the news for one reason or another that may not reflect your work in the most favorable way, would encourage you to go ahead and acknowledge that on the front end. We are mindful that we have the fiduciary responsibility of representing the other 449 women in our organization. So we will check that to see if there's any negative news out there. So if you do have that, I know there is often an opportunity for more explanation around that. So I would encourage you to go ahead and do that. I think I've answered the application, but happy to answer more questions on that. But yes, it's longer. Specifically a whole new section on finances, on organization, background, and then around how you plan to implement this project. We ask for a timeline, things like that, so that we know what you're working on. Um, yes, we do accept organizations that apply through a fiscal sponsor, as long as that fiscal sponsor is a 501(c)(3). So I know Community Foundation, for example, or others are great fiscal agents. They have supporting organizations underneath them. That is perfectly fine. I would just encourage you to make sure you are the only one applying under that fiscal sponsor, or if you're not, it's something that we'll reach out and discuss with you before we make any decision one way or another. But yes, Samson definitely able to apply under a fiscal sponsor. Okay. You've got 30 more seconds if anyone else has questions. You can also reach me again at that grants at impact100atlanta.org. We are here to help. This is different from many of the other application processes that I've experienced. I've submitted hundreds in my lifetime, and this is very much a relational one, not a transactional one. If I see that you forgot or you uploaded the wrong budget, I'll shoot you a quick note and tell you to fix it before we send it to grant review. So know that we're here to help. We could not do our work if you all didn't do your work. And really, I got to say this on the last one, but we are so thrilled to be able to give away 5 grants this year. We are able to do that because of the work that you all do. Women are so inspired by the powerful impact that so many nonprofits in Atlanta are having today, and just grateful for all of you that the time you're taking even to sit in a webinar on a Monday morning and to write these LOIs and these applications. You are the reason we're able to make these grants. So thank you for letting us be a part of your journey. If you have any questions, feel free to email us. I think I got all of them, but someone said I missed some. So let me make sure I got all of them. See, someone chatted me that there are questions in the chat before I wrap. We talked about STEAM. We talked about fiscal sponsors. We talked about mental health. Oh, I just got another one. We are teaching underserved students outdoor skills, but we're an environmental group. I understand application of the it's really up to you to make that choice, thinking about those the measurable impact pieces that you're pulling out. Environment, recreation, and animal welfare is one of our less applied in categories. So I think that could have a really strong, powerful impact there. I'd go back and read over that focus area, how we describe the role of the role of environment, recreation, and animal welfare in advancing positive outcomes. But I could see that applying really well in environment. If you feel like that's something that would pass the rigor, if your project was up against, building a new playground, that's what we've funded in the past in that category, or sports court, does it have as strong of an application? So just think about it in that sense. But we'll encourage you to do that. Okay, okay, I think I've gotten all of them, but Anna, if I missed one, please feel free to drop it in before I hop off. Okay, I think we're set. I see some past applicants in the pool here too. Please continue to apply. I know the process is long, but it's because we care so much about you all and where this money is going. I'm excited to see some past past applicants come back again this year. We'll post this Q&A on the website as well. I see you, Synchronicity, on the website as well, so that everyone has access to this information. But again, please reach out, and happy writing. I know it's not fun, but hopefully it is fun to tell the story in a way that inspires all of us to be a part of it. Thank you guys. Have a great rest of your day.